The second part is called the student learning plan. This pretty much always looks exactly the same no matter the grade level. It's got 3 sections where you say, I'm good at these, I need to practice these, and I need to learn these. What's happening here is the child is basically reading the feedback. They're interacting with the data that you're giving them. So often when we just give children grades, they react to the feedback, meaning they have an emotional reaction. I'm good at this or I'm bad at this. I got what I needed to do or I didn't. And when we connect that to a sense of status, okay, what happens in the brain is hormones get released in the brain that reduce long-term memory creation. So what I mean is if I give children evaluative feedback, you got 8 out of 10 of what you needed to do, right? The children go, okay, I'm almost there. But if I say you got 5 out of 10, what happens is the child internalizes it and says, that was not what was expected of me. I was supposed to do better. I'm not good at this. I did not do well at this. People are going to be disappointed. Whatever emotional internalization goes on there, fight or flight hormones start kicking in, and the brain actually produces hormones that reduce long-term memory creation. So even if you say, children, you didn't quite get this, we're going to go over it. You hear what I'm saying? We're going to go over it. So make sure you take your notes and pay attention. Doesn't matter. The child could be sitting there ready to take notes, paying attention to everything you say. They have hormones in their brain that are already suppressing their ability to learn the material that you're asking them to think about and wrestle with. And that impact of those hormones on that brain can last anywhere from 1 to 6 days. I want to be super clear about the impact on learning that the hormones that come out of when we attach feedback to status, meaning you're top of the class or you're not, you're doing what I need you to do or you're not. That is not to say that feedback is bad. Children will play video games where they die 100 times in a half hour. Everyone with me on that? Those hormones don't get released, actually. They sit there and they're like, okay, I'll do it again. Just don't go in that door. Oh, I'll do it again. Try another way, try another way. They're actively learning. So feedback is incredibly powerful to the human brain. In fact, it loves it. It's like, yes, yes, yes. Tell me what I need to do. But they want the reset button, right? They want to be able to learn. Failure should be the pathway to learning is what I'm saying. Once you attach it to status or evaluative feedback is when that hormone gets released in the brain. I'm going to pause there. Does everyone understand? Or what are your thoughts on what I just said and its impact on learning and the way we normally process feedback?
I'm thinking developmentally, like there's a certain shift as kids get a little bit older in primary school. Where they start to compare themselves. Like they know who the best in math is. They know who the best in writing, drawing, all that stuff. At the younger ages, they're not as savvy to that. So I'm just thinking like the importance of that coming through like probably year 3, year 4, maybe not year 2. I don't know. About that age though, where they really start using that comparative analyzation of like their own skills.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right, Nick. And this idea of students thinking that school is about comparing themselves to one another as opposed to comparing themselves to a set of criteria, right? So if we can get into our culture that we want the students to compare themselves to the given criteria as much as we can and to help them self-regulate, meaning they know what they're supposed to learn and they know what they need to do to improve their performance on it. Therefore, they are in control of improving their performance on it instead of it being, oh, look what my teacher did to me. Like, this teacher just ruined my GPA or this teacher just ruined my, right? There's this reactionary response we get when a child felt powerless. They were not in control of what was happening to them. And they're at the mercy of figuring out how to get an A from you, right? How do I please this teacher? How do I please that teacher? How do I get an A from, and that's where we start seeing students trying to find the easy teacher, right? Or resenting a challenging teacher. So we really want to think about I go back to the age. At what age do we start teaching children that learning is in their control and that they are the ones that need to insist on knowing what they need to learn, why they're learning it, how they're supposed to learn it, how they'll know if they've learned it, and then they can have feelings about it, right? But if we make them be in the obey state, then if they don't learn it, guess whose fault it is?
Yes.
So if I say, don't think about this, kids, just obey me, follow my directions, do what I tell you to do. If you do all my assignments and all the homework and you do exactly what I do, I guarantee you'll learn this. I'm not convinced you and I can make that promise, right? Because what happens if the child doesn't learn it? Then it's our fault. Okay, so what we want to really start thinking about is if you want children to get self-motivated and you want them to be able to self-assess, then we have to hand over some of those controls and we have to go, this is what you have to learn. Here is how you can learn it. We're going to differentiate that. We'll get to that in a minute. And here's what you know, here's what you need to practice, and here's what you still need to learn. So we have to get clear at being able to explain that. And if we can, now it's the child's job to practice and learn. We can, because we're professional educators, we can facilitate that, we can support them, we can answer questions, we can give them more strategies, we can continue to give them feedback. But really, you cannot force a child to learn something. If you've ever tried to do it, it's an awkward experience for both of you. We made that joke on Saturday, but this idea is teaching is an invitational art. And to many of our students, if they just obey us, you're right, they will learn it. But many of our children, if they obey us, actually won't be as successful as they could have if there were more ways to approach the learning and work through it. So that's what a self-navigation tool is giving respect to, right? A self-navigation tool is saying, there's more than one way to learn this. I'm going to walk you through several. I'm going to hand over options of how to learn it. Children, you need to master these learning targets. You need to learn these learning targets while I'm telling you to do so during this time frame. So let's get practicing. How are we doing? Does that make sense? That's the feeling you want it to have.
We have to be very careful with our language choice then, don't we?
Yes.
I think, and also to know our children's personalities well and their emotions to themselves as learners. I think we can, we only needs a couple of words to, as you say, block somebody's learning.
A couple of words. In fact, yes. We're going to look at so many ways of our instruction. Self-navigation is going to depend on how we set it up in instruction. Okay, so this first part here, where you see the student insights, is where they react and they take the data from up here. Okay, and notice these are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. You should always have these numbered. See that? Because what the children are going to do is they're going to take these numbered learning targets and they're going to organize them down here. I'm good at these skills, 1, 3, and 4. So 1, 3, and 4, I know. By the way, you really want a self-navigation tool to celebrate learning no matter how small. So even if a child, notice on this, if there were only 6 learning targets, the child only got 3 of them correct. So technically, if I were using a different way of giving feedback, that could be a 50 or a 3 out of 6. Oh my gosh, right? These are horrible. But what does it look like here? It's the longest column. It's the column that has the most. The things I know has more in it than any of the other columns. I only need to practice 1, and I still only need to learn 2. Listen to that language. Listen to the way that goes with the brain. So this is what we call with descriptive feedback. And we talk about saying, okay, I'd like to go into a little bit about self-motivation here. I don't know how many of you were with me on Saturday, but the idea of motivation, remember I showed the lottery ticket? Did I show a lottery ticket? I think I totally did. So the lottery ticket is about wanting something. I want to learn. I want to improve. I want to be the best kid in the class. But wanting something does not motivate to action. So the human brain, I want to win the lottery. I totally do. But I didn't buy a ticket. So why didn't I buy the ticket? Well, because I did the math and I figured out it's not very likely for me to win. So if the brain doesn't believe it's doable, then it doesn't motivate to action. Actually, what it does is it comes up with excuses. Watch this. Watch what my human brain does. This is the funniest thing. So not only do I want to win the lottery, but I totally didn't buy a ticket, I justify in my brain not buying a ticket. I go like this. I go, technically, if you look at the research, the people who win the lottery, their lives are ruined. Did you know this? Yeah, it's totally true. Their lives are miserable, right? It tears their families apart. They end up getting hounded by people who just end up stealing the money from them anyway. I mean, how amazing. I love my family. That's why I didn't buy a lottery ticket. I actually saved all of my relationships by not buying a lottery ticket. Probably even saved my life. I mean, not for nothing. If you look at the suicide statistics of people who win the lottery, you look at what my brain is doing. My brain is completely rationalizing the fact that I wasn't motivated to action to do what I wanted to do. At what age do you think children start to rationalize this way, where they go, oh, that math is pretty hard. I should probably just avoid all careers that have anything to do with that level of math, right? Or, you know what? Drawing is difficult. I'm not going to be an artist. Got it. Not for me. Not going to be an artist. So the brain will decide if it's good at something or not. At what age do you think that starts? Age 5, right? It starts so young. Your students, the brain, now once the brain decides it's not good at something, if it stays in that space for time, it actually becomes physically more difficult to teach the child that thing. So when the brain identifies as not good at this, it actually will take you longer to teach the brain that material. The brain actually starts pruning dendrites in that area, okay? So when we look at drawing, if I ask you all to draw a human being right now, if I gave you a shot, like just go ahead on your scrap paper, draw me a human being that actually looks like a human being. Give it a shot. I might have drawn one that looks a little bit like that.
We've got twins.
Right? But most human beings don't walk around like this, right? This is not what they actually look like. And maybe you were sophisticated and put them down like this. But that would actually mean that I got arrested development in my art skills by 1st grade. So by 1st grade, somewhere in my brain, I learned I'm not drawing things that look like I feel like they should. And so I decided I wasn't good at drawing. Everyone with me on that? So I was like, oh, society accepts stick figures? Rock on, I can do stick figures. And I use stick figures to communicate, okay? So society told me it was okay for me to not really push myself on this one. And if adults stand up in front of students and go, hey, I'm the math teacher, so don't ask me about spelling or punctuation. That means an adult just shut down an entire discipline. And I also modeled for the children, you're allowed to shut down an entire discipline and decide you're not good at it, and so you don't have to learn it anymore. Just get past the test. How are we doing? Does this make sense? The brain science behind this, you and I could spend a whole day just on this brain science and what happens in the brain with those hormones. But here's what I'm suggesting. You see these student insights, these 3? Do not remove one of the columns. Why? Because when you and I learn, we go from needing to learn something to needing to practice it. And then we can go from needing to practice something to actually being good at it. But we don't go from needing to learn something to being good at it. That's not the way it goes. It skipped a step. And so when students see too big a list of the things they need to learn, and you're telling them that they need to get good at it in 3 weeks, the brain goes, ooh, or the brain is in danger of going, I don't think that's doable for me. And the minute it doesn't think it's doable, you just killed self-motivation. Now they're in the obey state, and they're going to rely on you, and they're going to follow directions, and they're going to do what you're saying, but now it's going to take you longer, and they're not self-regulating, they're not self-motivating, and they're very, very close to making excuses or coming up with reasons why it's okay if they don't do this. All right. So, and that happens, I kid you not, as early as reception. Right? This is something that happens very young. These kids are going to learn this. So that means you and I have to teach students how to be self-navigating. And by that, I mean the 3 selfies: self-regulating, self-motivating, and self-assessing very early. All right, awesome. So having those 3 boxes, and then up at that first part is where we gave them the feedback. We said, you know this one, you have to practice this one, you still have to learn this one. And then the children just process it. Don't make them rewrite the whole learning target, just numbers. Look at that, 1, 3, and 4, I'm good. 5, I need to practice. And 2 and 6, those I need to spend time and focus and learn. And now the child can make choices about which ones are they going to practice and which ones are they going to learn. But whose job is it to do the learning? Look at the pronouns we're using. I need to learn this. I need to practice it. That's where you want their brain.